Do not adjust your sets. Do not call your cable or internet provider. Don't blame this on Elon Musk. I am Rob Kerr, in for vacationing Ryan Pinder and Dean Mulberg. I'm not exactly sure. I'm here. Thank God Retro's here. And thank God Cam Moon from the Edmonton Oilers is what? This
We
is a
don't need
crazy
any
show.
more Oiler
Talk?
talk. We
Is
had
that
a
what we're
lot
doing?
of Oiler talk. A lot of Oiler talk yesterday, Rob. It was a bit
Too much, right? A bit much.
Yes.
How are you, sir? How do we find you today?
We're doing pretty good. Bright and sunny skies here in Buffalo, so the weather's nice and everybody's feeling pretty good. Yourself?
Well, we got a little skiff of snow. So woke up with a
No.
little white stuff on the bar. Yeah, on the roof. That's mostly gone now. Just a reminder where we are and who we are. But yeah, little reminder. Yeah. Now it's supposed to go to 27 next week, but that's probably the most Calgary thing of Calgary things, right?
That doesn't seem odd at all. If you live there, you can get used to it. Other people, I think there was a point a couple months ago where it swung like 40 degrees overnight. And I tried telling people that here, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, that can't happen. I'm like, that's how it operates up there. Shut up.
It is. It's what we live with. Although I do have, and am I using the term correct? Lake effect snow. We don't get the lake snow here, right? So
the lake effect snow will shut you down for sure. I tell people though, Rob, and you might not know, like, it's not a shot. We don't get the snow that they get here. I understand why the city of Calgary doesn't own snow removal equipment. In Buffalo, there are everyone has a plow and a tractor and a dump truck, and you'll get 12 feet of snow, and they'll have the roads cleared in 24 hours. It's amazing.
It is, but it's life in northern New York, right? That's what you come to. Yeah. We have Tommy Wheeldon Jr. joining us here at the top of the hour. Are you? I don't know this about you. Are you a big footy fan? Do you have a team? Are you were you sequestered behind closed doors during the World Cup? Where's your fandom when it comes to soccer?
I love soccer. Love the game of footy or football or wherever you want to call it. I didn't grow up playing it. Really, I've never played it other than maybe with my 9-year-old in the backyard. But I had an Italian buddy in Saskatoon, and I think it was the World Cup here in the States, and I think the Italians played Brazil in like early 90s. Yeah. And I was invited over to his place, and they had the whole crew, and it was the final. And I actually said to him one day, I said, we're going to go to that one day. And in 2006, me and him and two other buddies, we all went over to Germany and watched the World Cup and had a blast of a time. One of the best sporting events. Well, probably the best sporting event I've ever been part of.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be different, right? I'm not sure you could compare it. Like you wouldn't compare it to a Super Bowl. You wouldn't compare it to a World Series. It's just a different feel and a different event when it's the entire world.
And we were in a great spot. I think that sometimes it moves around, so you maybe don't know what city or what you're going to get into. But in Germany, it was awesome. It operated so good. You got the trains, you got the good beer, you got the passionate fans. Wonderful event.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to talking we were talking earlier about weather. It looks like 23 degrees on Sunday for their home opener. So beauty. I'm sure if we talked to Tommy, the 4 previous home openers probably haven't been that nice, or a couple of them I think were wet, but I'm just going off the top of my head. So this is a nice change, or a nice weekend anyway.
I think the first game ever, Boomer and I took a couple of our bratty kids and went and watched, and there was, like you said, there was a skiff of snow that day as well.
Sure. Well, again, it's Calgary. I'm live in the right. We're hardy folks. We're live in the Tower Chrysler studio. Consumer Choice Award winner, voted Calgary's favorite Chrysler Dodge dealer. 10901 McLeod Trail South, and at towerchrysler.com. Before we get to Tommy, any burning thoughts, ideas? I mean, we can get into it afterwards, but just 2 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night. Florida stays alive, and lo and behold, here are the Seattle Kraken. Who knew? Leading the defending Stanley Cup champions now 3-2.
That Kachuk guy seems to be involved again, and and every time you see it, you're like, you cringe a little bit because nobody wanted to
Overtime
see him
again?
go. Yeah,
Nope.
and the Seattle team, talking with Boom and Pinder recently. I didn't pay a lot of attention to him this year. I don't know
No.
that I watched a full Seattle Kraken game.
Yeah.
I've watched some of the periods now. They're
Yeah.
pretty fun to watch. Fast, aggressive, and they don't stop. Go, 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 go. They're great.
Their top line with a young guy, Matty Beniers, and then Jordan Eberle. And I stopped there and I go, Jordan Eberle? He's been around for a long time. He's bounced around, and not to take anything away from him. He's got local ties, and he's a good pro, but he's not, McKinnon. You're not going up against one of the premier number 1 lines in the National Hockey League, but it's more of a pack mentality, right? Like they play that system where one line is going to be like the next line, right?
They swarm you and swarm you and
Yeah.
swarm you and go and repeat. And it sure looks like they got Colorado flustered and frustrated.
Something's not right there. And I know Landeskog's not there. Makar had the suspension last night. No Nichushkin, and I think you had Frank on yesterday, and I'm wondering a little bit if there isn't a distraction going on there, because they look a little bit like a distracted team, don't they?
They could be. I also wondered if it's not easy to repeat.
No.
Right? Like they had a long run last year, and I think they're a great team and this and that. You lose your captain, Makar.
Mm-hmm.
But even without the injuries and the suspensions, I think it's just real hard to get your energy level to the point it was at last year. That burn, that desire, the old eye of the tiger, feeling.
Yep, I do.
It's hard to duplicate. And if you're 5 to 10% off, even though you think you're still going pretty good, but if you're 5 or 10% off of what you were last year, it ain't going to happen for you.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes what Tampa's done the last couple of years that much more incredible, right? I mean, it took forever for somebody to win back-to-back. Pittsburgh, did it, back in 16, 17. It hadn't been done in a long time. Now they went back-to-back against Detroit, but didn't win both. But to your point, I mean, even worse than that, Rhett, it's the teams that make it to the finals that don't win. The history of that next season and their results is not really good either.
No, I've got to experience that. It is not it's not easy to come back after going that far and then spend the summer living a life full of disappointment. And everyone says, "Oh, well, you got there and stuff." It's like, no, I didn't want to get there. I wanted to win. And now I spent the summer not sipping out of the silver chalice, just licking my wounds. So you're beat to piss and you don't have anything positive to think about all summer. You're mad. It's hard to get the emotions back to where they need to be.
Right. I was not intention. It was not my intention. My intention was more of like Nashville. I just remember Nashville a couple of years ago. It just seemed like they were building and building and building, and they finally get to a Stanley Cup. And then the next year, it just, they've never been the same since, right? Same thing with San Jose, right?
Yeah.
San Jose were the after runs for so many years. They finally get to that cup. And, since then, they've fallen off. It's hard.
Well, and it's extremely hard. And that's, what you talked about, Tampa doing it 3 years in a row. Incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And to the point where I'm not surprised at all to see them maybe not play as well, although up 4-1, they could be doing just fine if they hadn't squandered a few leads, but everything has to go your way. You have to have the emotion, you have to have the excitement, you have to have the skill. You can't get injured. There's just so much to it. So much to it.
Is it because we repeated on this side of the microphone, you lived it. Is there something to the old axiom about the first round being the hardest?
Yes, I think there is. I don't know why it's that way. right? Because you go and you
Well,
go to the Stanley Cup final, and it's not easy to. But I just think that there's so much emotion, and there's so much going on.
yeah.
You haven't lived that life. I mean, you at at minimum you lived it a year earlier, and it just seems like a long road. Really, you know
Mhm,
what I mean? And
mhm.
you kind of got
It
to get on that. You got to get that train started down the track. And once you can
yeah.
do that and get through the first round, well, now you got some momentum behind you, and it helps to carry you a little bit.
I just always felt like, it's almost, not to use the World Cup analogy, but everybody's in it. There's 8 games and 16 teams, and everybody's talking about it. The fans have enthusiasm. The reporters have. Everybody's got enthusiasm. And by the end of the first round, wow, what a great first round! And then by the time we get to the second round, now we're 8 teams and 4 series, and you know,
Well,
we've been doing this for a
and the
couple
other
weeks
thing,
now.
yeah, and the other thing that can happen is that you have to work your ass off to get there.
Yep.
Right? Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of times where you're looking at the standings, you're going, "We gotta win 5 out of 8 to get into the f playoffs and just to get there," and it's like, "Holy." And then the playoffs start, and it's like, "Oh my god, we're still going. This is still hard." So, it's there's lots of pressure that goes with all of it. I don't know why some teams are able to handle it better than others, but those teams like Tampa that go year after year, that's not luck.
Well, it's depth and health, right? Depth and health.
Yeah.
You got to have health, and then if you don't, you got to have depth. Pretty straightforward. Right. I think. Do we have Tommy close? We'll find out in a second. You know, this is a good time though to talk about Bonton Meat Market, don't you think? I think it's well.
I
When's
always,
when's it not
always for
a
me.
good time, right? Always. Yeah. What was it? 2 weeks ago, I came in here and you guys had this big spread of everything. Ribs and potatoes. I mean, nobody takes better care of this crew than Greg. Like, it's amazing, right?
It's well, and it's hard to do the job because he sends it in, and then you start stuffing your face, and by half hour into the show, you want to put your head on a pillow and close your eyes.
The original Bonton Meat Market opened its doors back in 1921. All they've done since then is provide the highest quality product and treat customers like family. The best AAA Alberta beef, free range poultry, great grain fed Alberta lamb, milk fed veal, and fresh Alberta pork. Once again, Bonton was voted Calgary Consumer Choice Award winner for the best deli meat market. Easy to find, 28 Crowfoot Circle Northwest, bontonmeatmarket.com. We will visit with Tommy Wheeldon Jr. here in a little while, but as well, we will be giving away tickets. You get to give away prizes on this show. I like that.
I usually have nothing to do with it, but I'm all for it.
Well, we're going to give away some tickets. I think that's going to be fun. So,
Let's do it.
looking
You
forward
know
to
what
that.
else? Hey, I need you
Yeah.
to fill me in
Mm-hmm.
because it's tough to get Calgary Wrangler update here in Buffalo, New York. How was the crowd, and what were the results?
In overtime, 3-2, Jacob Pelche with the winner. So Calgary takes game 1.
Nice.
The crowd was good. I suspect that it's going to be much better on Friday. At puck drop, it was a little bit thin in the lower bowl. And you'll remember a couple, like way back a decade ago when the Hitmen went on their run to the finals, and by the middle of the second, third round, the dome was really starting to fill up. I wonder if that's not what we're going to see.
Yeah.
Dustin Wolf was good. There's a little bit of old-fashioned animosity between these clubs. They played quite a bit down the last bit of the stretch, but no, kind of a fluky goal for Calgary to open up the scoring, and then it was just tight hockey the rest of the way. They go to overtime, and Pelche just nice move across the blue line, got to the middle of the ice and beat Spencer Martin from a fair distance, but a good goal. Nothing wrong with it. And it's up 1-0 heading into game 2 of this best of 5 on Friday.
Now, what do you think about because Pinder brought it up and he said it was cool, and I said it was ridiculous, the schedule and how it works.
Yeah,
The 2-3.
I like it because it gives you something to talk about, right? Like, what would you do? Would you rather have the 3 games or would you rather have the 2? I was talking to somebody who knows Mitch Love really well, and he said hands down, Mitch Love wants the first two. He wants to go, put your foot on the throat, so to speak, and then just have to win one on the road. So I like it because it's a debate, right? But it's one of those debates too that you can overthink. I guess the equivalent in the NHL would be, do you want 2-2, 1-1, and 1, or would you rather have 2, 3, and 2? Right, in a best of 7.
Yeah, I just feel bad for a team that worked their ass off. If it goes to 5, they don't get their crowd behind them or last change.
Yeah. No, I thought I was missing something, but a lot of conversations like this about, what do you do? And to me, it opens up that exactly what you just said is it opens up some, second guessing if this thing goes to 5 and you're playing next Sunday in Abbotsford, and that's the other thing is they play Wednesday, Friday, and they don't play game 3 until next Wednesday. Friday.
I know that.
Yeah.
Goofy.
Yeah. But what are you going to draw? Well, I guess you could have played Sunday in Abbotsford. Probably would have been a good draw. Right.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I don't consider so much because I'm so far away from it is that those teams need to fill the buildings as much as possible. So give them good days to host, I guess. But it seems a little off. But.
That's what I said about you asked about the crowd, looking at the crowd last night. I really thought it was going to be a lot fuller, but I think it will be on Friday. And I think it will be the further, it goes. That to me, I'm just going on what the Hitmen used to do when they got rolling, right? The further they went, the bigger the crowds got. First round was always hard to fill for the Hitmen. So you want to talk a little footy with our pal? Should we do that?
Let's do it.
All right. This Sunday out at Atco Field, the Cavalry will kick off their home part of their schedule in their 5th season. They host the Valor at 3:00. The weather looks gorgeous, 23 degrees. Very pleased to, invite in our good friend, dear friend, longtime friend, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., the manager of the Cavalry of the CPL. There he is. How are you, sir?
Hey, gents. Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on. Welcome back to Calgary, Rhett.
Yeah, no, I was back in Calgary, and now I'm back in Buffalo, and then I'll be back in Calgary. So I'm going back and forth now. I'm no longer banned from my country, so I could travel a little
bit. Nice.
Always a little concerned about the legal part of this. Tommy, let's talk about the start of the season so far. We can deal with a couple of the off-season changes in a minute, but you've already got 2 under your belt in terms of the CPL, but you've also played a little Canadian Championships. Thought on what you've seen from your squad so far?
It's been a good start because it was never going to be easiest on the schedule playing the defending champions first. I thought we were very good and unlucky not to win it, really, to be honest. But that's a learning moment for us in terms of closing out the game. The Can Champ, really good, tough conditions. The wet and the rain makes a difference, but it was a different experience for us. Lads were good. PKs is always a lottery, unfortunately, and one penalty kick away from being in the next round. That's always a tough one to swallow. But I thought we were good considering we were a bit depleted on the Sunday game. Showed a different side of us where our defense actually had to grind out the point for us because we weren't great with the ball. But what I've seen over the course of these 3 games is character. And you can have all the X's and O's and all the technique and that, but I need to know how many of these guys are willing to suffer on the road and pick up more points. Because this time last year, we lost 2 out of the first 3 on the road and ended up, could have won the league by 2 points. That was the difference and the fine margin. So, it's a good way to start. We come back and we had a terrific home record last year, and that does give us a lift in front of our fans. So at least we've got points on the board, and nobody really in the league right now is winning much. The first place team is only 2 points ahead of us. So it's and that's who we play on the weekend. So it's in our hands.
5 years in, I mean, I go back to Don Matthews when he was coaching in the CFL. He said, you really don't know what you have until week 4. I buy into the old Peter Marr benchmark in the NHL that really the first quarter of the season isn't as important as the second quarter. The second quarter of the season is when you really get a good gauge on your team. What's your benchmark? When do you feel like, you can really get an honest evaluation of your team.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. For me, it's kind of that, play everyone wants. And I think, and varies home and away. And once we played everyone once, the first thing we learn about ourselves, how we are on the road against them, how we are at home against a different group, but how we are in both environments. Because, to win out on a 28-game season where we play everyone 4 times, you can take those games to heart and then build from there. So yeah, I like to see the first 7 games gives us a lay of the land, and then from there, we can build on or improve on as we need.
Brett? No. Oh, okay. I hope I didn't insult him.
I've bored him with the football talk.
No, he's not bored at all. He was excited you were coming on. Let's go back to the offseason. Mason Trafford hangs him up. Tell us a little bit about the changes that you've had and what you've had to add this year as you get ready for year number 5.
Well, and that's the thing we've looked at. In the off season, you always spend that time reflecting. How close we were, but you also look at winning in other ways. And as a club, this is the first season we've been able to go back to back without any pandemic. You look at 2019, we had a really promising opening season. And then, obviously the pandemic hit us all. And then 2021 was broken. So 2022, was a real season. Now we're going back to back. And with that, players age out. But, something that myself and our president, Ian Allison, had always talked about is how do we build this club for the future? So this is not just a one season, let's go and try and win a championship. This is something that we want to be a legacy at Spruce Meadows, a legacy within Canadian football and helping change that landscape. You and I have chatted for years on these things. So our big picture, Rob, is always right. How do we build that infrastructure? And Mason Trafford was our captain last year and a terrific professional. He's kind of like that Mark Giordano type, that he's Mr. Reliable week in, week out. What we saw was other qualities. So, we saw him, he had a very entrepreneurial brain, very organized, great at building relationships. So we felt he was a great fit in our front office as our commercial director, managing partners, bringing in new excitement. And he's been terrific. Add to that now, you've got Nick Ledgerwood, who's our assistant coach and community manager, deals with a lot of, getting out all the youth clubs and programs to, Jay Wheeldon, my brother, who's running our under-21s, to recently Oliver Minotaur was another returnee to the club. And these are good moments for us, and shows that on top of, likes of, Joel Waterman getting into the Qatar World Cup squad, to Dominic Zator and Victor Lattori, players that have been with us that are being named in the recent Canada squad. And, Mo Farsi last night scored his first goal for his MLS club. So these are moments that we're trying to keep building on because it's a big part of it. We're always going to contend and chase championships. That's our DNA. But we also like the fact that we're able to develop other opportunities for Canadians where there weren't any 5 years ago.
So if we go back to our conversations from a decade ago and you introduced the term path to professional and a path to, what your vision was 10 years ago, having alumni, having, I don't know what else the way to put, well, having these guys return and be part of it and help move it forward. Was that always part of the plan, or has that been a really positive kind of benefit or surprise that these players are sticking around, these players are now coaching? It just seems like there's some longevity to the career in Calgary.
Yeah, it was always part of the strategic plan. So when I first met with our ownership group, the Southern family and Ian Allison, we talked about, a sustained long-term project, not just a win and done and have a one good season. It was about how can you maintain that level of success? How can you strive for excellence? Yeah. Those words are written around Spruce Meadows, and why, we're approaching our 50th year here is, it's sustainable. It's strive for excellence every single day. So we looked at Nick Ledgerwood, bringing him back to have his last chapter of football, to Mason Trafford, to even I knew with my brother that he's an unbelievable coach and, our under-21 coach, but also, technical director of Calgary Foothills, the job I used to have. So there's this pathway that we've created that we think is a really, makes us different from everyone. But it's also something that if you look at the top clubs around the world, whether it's Bayern Munich in Germany or Ajax in the Netherlands, they're the ones that actually have this very similar one where, you know, if people have bled for you, and actually the Cavalry's motto is blood over grass, hence the red and the green connected. These guys have bled over grass for us. So when they're in their front office or on the sidelines as a coach, or on the phone representing us overseas with international recruitment, they care that little bit more. So it makes it easier for them to be motivated. There's no time clock for them. They're working all the time trying to grow the club, and and that's been a big challenge over the pandemic, where things have been paused. But we're stubborn, and we're continuing to make the strides that we feel is necessary for the growth of this team and this game.
So tell me about the work that you had to undertake this offseason to prepare for this year. We talked about a few of the players that have turned over, but what was recruitment like? What was even just re-signing? You had to bring back your, arguably your most important player, your goaltender. So what was the offseason like for you?
Well, that's where we go first and foremost. Always in our recruitment is we're very big on taking the time to reflect and not making the emotional decision. So the off season is we have a lot of exit pulse checks. You think of the hockey locker rooms; they have their locker clear out. Funnily enough, today is locker clean out because we're moving back in to return to Spruce Meadows. But no, first and foremost is like what went well and why, what didn't go well, and how can it improve? And what went well was you've had a young man like Marco Carducci that fought off cancer, got the Goalkeeper of the Year award, and is always just that. No, just that he amazes us all with the way he talks and the way he approaches life. So it was an easy decision, A, to lock him down with his contract, and B, give him the captain's armband. It actually made our job easier. So that one jumped out. And Ali Musi, one of the most exciting attacking players in the league, was the other one that we went after. And then you look at, right, what do we need in terms of systematic players? So we'd made decisions in the offseason where we'd signed players that, we felt had been in the league, had been at good teams and could come in and fit our culture. And actually it was harder. The older they were, the harder it was. So we went after players that we felt were systematic. So with, Mason Trafford leaving, Callum Montgomery's been a great one coming in from the MLS environment, and is kind of, similar in profile. Adoka Chima, very similar in profile to Karifa Yao, who's younger, that, has a lot more coachability to him. We're seeing with Shamit Shom, who's a player that we've known, being an Edmonton boy, going to the MLS, return to Edmonton. We felt he could have the energy that Victor Latour had when we sold him to Jesse Daly, to recently Brad Camden coming in as a Canadian and a local guy. So these are guys that might not be as flashy per se on their highlight reel, but they were systematic because we felt they would make Marco Carducci better. They would make Dan Klomp better. They'd create more goal opportunities for a Joe Mason, Sergio Camargo, Maya Bevan. And we're seeing right now, Jose Escalante, one of our originals, is playing in a new role because that's what the team needs right now. That's a systematic player, and that's something we bring in. So we spend a lot of time, Rob, looking at data analytics, looking at video. But the last one is always about the human element. Are they going to be, fit our culture? The guys that, are here to build something for the future are going to be the trailblazers. And we believe these guys are.
Had the pleasure of talking to Marco recently, and we talked about doing a new deal. Were you ever concerned that he might go elsewhere? I'll get into the reasons he told me why he stayed, and I love them. But was it ever a concern that you might have to replace your netminder?
Well, listen, I'll be honest. We had a call. We had several interests, but we had a call literally just before he was diagnosed with cancer about his availability, and we're in the with an MLS club that we were in talks with, and it was looking that way. Obviously, things change in football and in life. And he adapted. And as soon as he did that, we wanted to make sure that we rewarded him for, his situation, circumstance, his loyalty, and looked after him first and foremost. So, look, I think all our players, we know our place in the food chain, Rob. So all our players are available at the right price. So we believe in our pathway system. We believe in our recruitment system that will always bring players in. What we've got to do now, the more we create this trading history, is we've now got to be the ones that dictates the timing of it, because right now we're still a sellable club versus one that can hold down. But we have ambitions in our next round of sales to make $250,000 with one of the young players coming through. So we've got to manage that accordingly.
No, and rightfully so. That's the business that you're in. I get that. But when Marco sits next to me and says, I have a decision to make, I could go somewhere and sit, or I can stay here and play and develop. I chose to play in development. That's refreshing to me, right? Because I think that's up and down in sport. Sometimes we chase that elite spot, but that elite spot might be a bench. But we don't necessarily put enough priority, even at his age, of playing and reps and game pressure and all of those sort of things. So I like that conversation. I thought it was a refreshing conversation.
Yeah, it is, and hence why it was easy for us to give him the captain's armband. He bleeds for this club. He's also working within the Calgary Villains and helping out that next generation from the club he played for. So we believe in playing it forward, as we talk about on the pitch, but also as an ethos off it. And he represents that to great credit. And like I said before, we're fortunate to have him.
Well, and Tommy, you and I've done this long enough to know that you're probably wondering why I haven't gone off into left field yet. So now I'll go off into left field. The next time I do a coaching seminar or something in hockey, I'd like you to come and talk about it's okay for a netminder to be a leader. I love it. I don't get it in hockey. I've never got it in hockey, but they tried it with Roberto Luongo and everybody poo-pooed it. But leaders are leaders. And it's, to me, it's awesome that, you put it on the guy that deserves it, right? Not necessarily because of tradition.
Yeah, it's funny. My president always says to me about leadership is situational, and I think Marco's an epitome of that. He's been through moments that have tested him, challenged him. He's been with moments with the team, but one thing you notice is it's not just on the pitch. He's number one in the jersey and he's number one on the pitch, right? So it makes it easier that you always want your captain to be on there. He's our first choice keeper. But it's when he speaks in the locker rooms, he'll say something and people listen, and when he demands something, he listens. And he's not a guy that kind of is aggressive and grabs people by the collar or wants to take everything, but he is our tone setter. So I'll use the weekend as an example. I said at the start of the conversation, Forge, we were very good and, unfortunate not to have won that. In the penalty shootout, we'd have loved to have made a save in it. We'd have loved to have kept a clean sheet. We're through to the next round. But it was the last game where Marco was the most important, because sometimes a point can feel like 2 points dropped, from the win. That was a point earned. We suffered. Like last 15, 20 minutes, we had no gas. We were making changes. We were putting players in different positions because they were just fresh. We had several injuries. But Marco was our tone setter, because he would take his time on goal kicks. He would calm the guys down and just, choosing whether to play short to invite the pressure from the opposition or play direct and try and turn the opposition. He made very calculated choices, and that's where you want a leader, is in that situation. And I think that's where the boys respond, because we also surround him with, leadership group that can work through the spine of the team, and they're starting to know their jobs.
You, what about you? 5 years, same voice for 5 years. What do you do? This world, this sports world, man. Coaches are hired to be fired, managers, we see it all the time. What is your postseason evaluation? What's your off-season work like? Or are you okay? Are you comfortable being the same? What about you, Tommy? How have you changed since year 1 to year 5?
Yeah, never comfortable, to be honest. It's and I think that's what you have to lean into, Rob, is you have to embrace the discomfort. Like, for example, for me, I know my pattern of behavior. Once the first win happens, we can build from it. You just, you're leaning towards more of that first win. So for me, what I choose to do is surround myself with people that are better than me in other aspects. So, for example, I've got Nick Ledgerwood with his experience as a player, recently retired, that's played at the international, played in CONCACAF, knows that. Leon Hapgood has incredible energy on the pitch, and the players love him. We've got video analytics. We've got a mental performance coach. We've got several different aspects. And personally, I take my coaching licenses. So there's a pro license that's my next chapter, because I do always need to learn. You can learn in the job, but you can also learn by, going to these ones. So I know that's my next chapter, and I think that's something that's coming soon into CONCACAF, which, I'll be wanting to take. But I'm open to feedback. I reflected after the season, and you take it personal because you're like, 2 points off of the first place again. So, if we'd have won that one game that we tied, or, beat Ottawa at home that one time out of the 2 times they played here, we're the regular season champions again. But I actually looked back and went, we probably overachieved. So if you think start the season, before we'd even kicked the ball, Anthony Novak, our starting striker, ACL, to, Tom Field, starting left back, ACL, to Marco Carducci, testicular cancer, 5 games in, Fraser Aird, Canadian international, ACL, and we're like, this is crazy. And then suddenly we go on our best winning run. We go 7 games in and create that 11-game unbeaten run because we kind of galvanized. And mid-season, Arabin Peppel creates all the attention. He was on a short-term contract, sold him. Victor Lattori had raised some interest, sold him. We replaced, and still we're there. 1 goal and 1 bad decision. You look at the playoffs. It's hard to take it personal when you don't get the calls that sometimes you need, and sometimes you got to be lucky to be good, and good to be lucky. But one thing I keep reminding myself is we aren't afraid to punch above our weight and aren't afraid to go back into that fire and keep going. So I'll always keep learning. I'll always keep adding things where I feel that maybe my blind spots are there. So I'm open-minded enough to do that. I have end-of-season discussions with our president and ownership group and give feedback, have feedback. So I know my job in this game is to help it grow. That's the big picture. And I know with that, you have to be the caretaker. So what I have to do is when the club makes the decision or things that they want somebody else in, no problem. I'll hand them the keys and leave it in a better place than I started it. And that's, if I can think like that, I'll always go to bed at night and always be able to sleep.
Tommy, are players changing? Can you see a change in the player?
Yeah, the league's getting better. So I think what's happening now, Rob, for the 2 years, what did people do in 2 years during a pandemic or 18 months is they sought things elsewhere. Like they went and got, online things. They read more. They're now more curious about things and have more of an opinion. So I think now as a coach, more than ever, you have to spell out your why. Before you give them the how or the what, you have to give them a why. We're doing this because this is what we see and this is how we feel we can do it. What do you think? And we can break that out into leadership groups first that can, get their background into it, to now going onto the pitch, running through it, and actually make sure the players know they're part of it. So I think what you're seeing now is more of a collaborative coaching process than a autocratic one that says it's my way or the highway. I think that's how players are changing. They're fitter, faster, stronger than ever. So that's now trying to it's the human element that I think will be the biggest growth. And it's the coaches and general managers with the high IQs that will continue to be the successful ones. High EQs, sorry.
Yeah. No, I knew you were going there. And I apologize because I'm going deep here, but I love this stuff. Like, to me, we can't just statically watch a sport player, a coach, manager, whoever, and just say, well, it's going to be the same this year as it was last year. You mentioned COVID. How much has mental health become an issue at the pro level? How much of it has been things that the player or even your staff might bring to work that you have to work through before you can get on to? They call it trauma-informed coaching. Is that something you're aware of? Is that something that you've had to adapt to?
Not that term, but I tell you, and I'll share with you that, through the pandemic, I think that's probably, if I look back now on the coaching, I'm still a young manager. I'm 43, so I still feel I'm learning every single day. But if I look back at greatest achievements, I think the pandemic was probably one of my highest moments because it was the hardest. And what I mean by that is, Rob, is how do you keep players engaged? How do you understand that, there's some players that, having troubles at home, some that can't get outside are having troubles because they've always needed that release, that impact, that, that testosterone release. People separating from their partners to Yeah, there's lots of things. So there's depression, there's mental health, and you can tell it, you can feel it. Like, I'm an empath, so I can feel that energy. And sometimes that's a good thing because you can be aware, but sometimes it's a bad thing because you absorb. And what I noticed with myself, and that's why I said with my own blind spots, is, I went and got a performance coach myself that I could talk through the process and say, I'm experiencing this because, and I've never had it before. So it was greatest thing. And what we've ended up doing as a club is being very forthright and proactive, saying, instead of reactive, because you want to be we want to create everything for every player. So we've hired a mental performance coach that comes in bi-weekly to speak with the players, be available, access, anything like that. So it's no different than we bring in our team doctor. Our team doctor looks at it with if there's knee injuries, things that are serious injuries, or we've got a team masseuse that the guys are tight. They've been battered and bruised over 3 games in a week. Right, she'll come in. Mental performance, video analyst, like who just needs extra time looking at it. Players learn in different ways. So I do believe it's we haven't scratched the surface on mental health yet, Rob. But I certainly be a proponent of it because I think it's the biggest difference in in life in general, but in actually high performance.
I've never had a coach tell me about their bringing in. So if you don't mind, you don't have to share it all, but just tell me a little bit about the concept behind, you going out and getting somebody to work with. How does that help you, or how has that helped you?
So think about what a coach is. We're here to affect behavior to improve performance. That's coaching in a nutshell. And I'm stealing that quote from a great coach mentor, Dick Bate, as he was known in England. How do you affect behavior to improve performance if your own behavior is you're angry at a result, or you're pissed off because somebody's not played the ball the way you'd run the drill to be? And then that player themselves have had car troubles, or they haven't been able to pay for something, or their family's struggling or going through surgery, but you don't know that. So how are you opening the door to make sure that that human being so you can affect their behavior to improve their performance? So I just felt that, when this pandemic hit and we were having conversations like this, it was, you could sense something wasn't right. So I thought, well, I need coaching. So as a coach, I need to know how to deal with these things because it's not in my remit. As I've got a degree in sports science and coaching, Rob. We tapped on psychology. You can always presume how people feel. Everyone's an amateur psychologist. So why not speak to somebody? So I sought out somebody I was recommended. And she's been brilliant. And she's been a voice of reason and is able to, remind me of the strengths and remind me of my blind spots. And I think if you're open to that, then you can fill the blind spots with people that might see something different or be able to support or divide and conquer. Because, it's like my mum always used to say, it's hard to drink from an empty cup. And we've got to make sure that we find people around us that are fountains, not just drains.
Well, outstanding. Thank you for sharing that, because that's, again, I've never heard that from a coach at the professional level before. So, and it really, I wish I started that with my question before, because that's the answer, what I was looking for. What are you doing? You're not stagnant. You're the manager, you're the guy, but you've got to be the leader too. And that's part of, to your point, that's part of leadership, right? That's making sure you're taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah, of course. Look, and it's in the job where, you win a few games, you're the king, right? And everybody's saying how wonderful you are. But you lose one or two, and suddenly now you're the villain. So it's, you've got to make sure that you're able to keep the balance, no matter, right? It's like that Rudyard Kipling, right? So you can't live too high in the sky when you're riding well, but you can't be too low when you're having a couple of bad performances, because it's not personal. It's situational. And in sports, we've seen that with Giannis last night. I seen his interview. It was brilliant, about saying about failure. I'm like, well, there's only one team that can literally lift a trophy in the whole sports league that you're competing in. Every team, if every team said they weren't going for that, they'd be lying. Oh, we're just doing this for development. No, we have to chase championships. That's why it's a league that keeps league tables, points on the board. But we know more often than not, we're going to fall short. Jack Nicklaus said it as well. He failed more than he won.
Right.
You've got to learn to deal with the failures because it's a professional sport and you can't guarantee outcomes. But if you can do that, that's the biggest battle of mental health as well for coaches, is be able to accept criticism and not get too high on the compliments.
We need more Tommy Wheeldon Juniors. We need more leaders talking about the important. No, but we do. We need more leaders talking about the importance of failure, because, and we can get into the youth and the development of sport here in a second, but we're removing that from our kids' lives, right? It's not your fault. They did it. It's them. Failure. I am a product of failure. I say that all the time. Like, I have failed way more than I've ever succeeded, but it influences and it impacts me. And to hear someone at your level, what Giannis said last night is absolutely true, right? Like, he made it, whatever it was, 15 years, he won 6, he failed 9 times. That's how Michael Jordan views it. But to me, we don't embrace failure enough, because it is such an important learning tool.
Well, look at what's going on now in the Premier League. So Tottenham have just fired one manager. They put his interim in. He lost the game 6-1 because guess what? The locker room's disjointed. Chelsea are going through a similar one. Fired their manager that they hired mid-season, brought in a guy that used to play for them. Terrific guy. He's lost a bunch in the row, and there's now talk about that. I'm like, well, it all depends on what your ownership will do. Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the greatest managers of all time, I don't think he won anything in 6 or 7 seasons at Manchester United, but he had a belief of building a football club, and he had a belief in values. And I think when you build it in that way, Phil Jackson's the same with wherever he's gone. He had a belief in something bigger than just the trophy. And I think the trophies will always come if you're doing the right things over and over. But yeah, failure is part of the journey. As long as you're leaving everything out there, and that's what I said, we go back to the blood over grass, and that's what I tell the players all the time, and why we got a good home record. The fans work very hard in this city. It's a very entrepreneurial city, very hard working. It's kind of that fuse between the blue collar to the white collar, but it's people want to see that they give everything. In Alberta, they want to see you give everything and leave it on there. So if our players leave the pitch and have given everything, there's more forgiveness there to say, yeah, you know what, they left it all out there. I can get behind that. But if they kind of wound or don't hunt back or don't chase or don't try to get at someone or take a shot, that's where you lose fans. And that's something that, listen, while I'm the caretaker of this football club, will always be primary in ours. We'll always leave everything out there. We'll leave blood on the grass. And that's an important thing. But it's also something now as a parent, that's what I tell my son. You have to earn the right in everything you do, whether it's you're doing your math or you're playing as a player. And guess what? You're going to lose some games. You're going to actually get some bad grades. That doesn't define you. It's how you respond to it. And that's the biggest
100%.
lesson as coaches. We don't tell enough. We don't tell enough.
100%. You mentioned your brother who's got your old job. My guess is you probably keep your finger on the pulse. What about the growth of the game? What are you seeing? We'll get into where we are internationally and how that helps. But, you've been very much a part of the fabric of this sport in our city for better part of 2 decades now. What are you seeing out there on community pitches?
Do you know what's really good now, Rob? And I think you and I spoke when we had that USL PDL team. And the reason we did that was we felt that bridge between 17 to 21s was kind of left to just going off to university. But and which is great, but there's a development pool that's needed. So if there are to be more and more expansion teams that come through Canada after we host the World Cup or before, where's the players going to come from? We can't allow just the 8 CPL clubs and the 3 MLS clubs to be the only ones that are actually servicing it. There's a lot of great development clubs, and you're seeing that with the T Rovers that, as a League One BC team, knocked out Valor, and done a giant killing, and now they're in the next round. And had we won on penalties, we'd be facing them. But what now is the infrastructure that across Canada, you've got the CPL, but underneath it now, and you know this, having worked in the hockey environment, we've got that underbelly that League One Ontario started. Now there's one League One Quebec, there's League One BC that started, and there's soon to be one League One now. And what that does is creates more opportunities for that 16, 17, 18-year-old, and also the late bloomers that might be 21, 22 that just had to finish university to find their physicality, their football brain. So that's what's growing. And underneath that, AYSL, which is Alberta Youth Soccer League, that they're trying to make more standards and high performance aspect. Train to play ratio is so you're not just playing 3 games a week and 1 training session. You're actually developing in accordance to how you can play the pitch. So there's lots of great things. I think I look at the technical directors of other youth clubs across the city, whether it's Calgary Southwest to, Jose Escalante works at Southwest United to, Sergio Camargo does work at Mackenzie United. Jay and Jordan Santiago, our keeper coaches at Calgary West. So there's a lot that are given back, and I think there's better coaching and leadership in those clubs more than ever, as well as now facilities, which I think has always been of shortage.
It'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the national teams, and respectfully, I know that there's some stories and controversies and they need to be addressed, and we'll address them, but maybe at a later date. I'm just more curious about the fact that, the first time you and I met was the 2014 World Cup, and, it just seems like so far off for Canada to have an entry in that. But here we are coming off our first World Cup since '86. Yeah, bruises and things, but you have to go. The women continue to be a dominant story on the pitch. And again, recognizing there is an off the field story too. But just as an observer and as someone who was committed to growing the game in this country, what was the last 2 years been like on the international level watching this country?
It's a truly Canadian story, punching above our weight. I don't think anybody had expected, the women to win the gold, and they did it heroically again. So, sometimes you have to have that little bit of luck along the way to be successful. And I'm not saying it was all up, but they left their hearts out there. They played. They were tactically good. And then the men's, nobody thought that they could get to the World Cup ahead of the 2026, but John Herdman had challenged them and said, look, let's be one of the last to earn that right, because it hadn't been earned since 1986. So I think it's wonderful to see that we are certainly punching above our weight. And now the fact we're having professional leagues under that, development leagues that are connected to it, to youth leagues around the world, we're doing something that's unique to this country. And the youth sport is another great example of that, to be able to pull players from that system, give them a youth sports agreement, scholarship, and then they can go back into that system. It's uniquely Canadian, and we're in a good way. And I just hope now that we're seeing more and more people put their dollar vote in. And what I mean by that, Rob, is, everybody can, share their opinion and thoughts on social media, but, if they're not out supporting their local club in their area, whether it's a ticket or a jersey or whatever they need to do, then it's just a voice. We need people to put their dollar votes in. That's how we're going to continue to grow this country and this league in this country.
Let's come back to CPL. Again, you open up your home portion of the schedule on Sunday against the Valor. Not having an Alberta Classico, not having an Edmonton team, I even harken back to our original conversations. We were talking about what Edmonton had and what Calgary didn't. It just feels like there's a hole, a void, and I know the league will address it at some point, but it does feel a little bit odd not having that other Alberta team in the league.
Yeah, it certainly does. And listen, while we were trying to develop the professional league, the Fath family actually brought professional soccer to Alberta. So, they put a lot of money into it. It didn't quite kick off. They had some great moments. And I think what we've got to do now is we've got to be willing to carry the torch for the province until they're ready to do it again. Edmonton had carried the torch for us for a while, so it's up to us to return that. Would we love them to be involved? Absolutely, because a 3-hour ride, it's Calgary, Edmonton, there's lots of people there that you recognize, from whether it's youth setups to family and friends, and so hopefully that'll be back. It's a great market. Wouldn't it be great if Alphonso Davies and an ownership group got in there? What a cool story to be had, and maybe that'll happen in the future, maybe it won't, but I think it's certainly a market that the futures will say, actually, that's a really good market. Let's do it again. But we've seen this in the MLS, Rob. When the MLS launched in the mid-90s, there was a few families that owned several clubs, and one or two didn't survive the initial. That's part of a startup business. But yeah, I think it'll be back. Vancouver coming in has shown that there's growth to be had, and I'm sure there's others going. But it's good. Listen, I just see my my battery's down to the last couple of %, so I don't want to do
problem.
a red on you.
No.
Crash
Red had a kid.
What is it with
Red had a kid.
these-
Yeah. So no, Tommy, I appreciate it. You know me, I could go on for hours. I really appreciate the
Likewise.
conversation. We encourage everybody to come out and check you out on Sunday, but best of luck the rest of the way. I know we'll talk between now and the end of the year, but thank you for doing this.
Thanks for me on, Rob.
Okay. Tommy Wheeldon Jr. from the Cavalry. Let's address Rhett first of all. Rhett did have to leave, and I believe he was taking. He had parent duties. He had kids to run around. We knew we were going to have him for the whole show, and Rhett's back.
I'm
Perfect.
back. Well,
I thought you had to go
scared.
take the kids.
No, I do in 15 minutes, but I had a mute on, and you shocked me when you threw to me. So then when I went to unmute, I hung up. So. And then I was decided
You were
that
shocked
probably
when I was going to. You were shocked when I was going to allow you to ask a question.
Well, I'm not good at soccer questions. I'm good at stomping my feet and eating the pierogies at the Cavalry games.
I'm sorry. I felt terrible because I knew you had to leave, but that was going to be later. And then when you left, I'm like, I actually wrote a note. I got this to Jack. I said, "Where's Rhett?" Because I'm feeling terrible about the whole thing. I'm like, Rhett has questions. I want him to ask questions. And then it's like, what did I do? I insulted the man somehow. He's hung up. He's taken his ball and gone home. Good.
I've been arguing with the people on the YouTubes about all kinds of stuff. Well, you had a good chat with Mr. Wheeldon instead of me interrupting and making a mess of things.
All right. So you heard some of the conversation?
I certainly did. I would love to get into a night. I would love to sit and have a beer or a coffee and pick his brain about coaching and stuff like that. You got into it a little bit, but it would be fun just to explore, because I do think he has a lot of deep thoughts and has done a lot of, I don't know if research is the right word, but he puts a lot of thought into how he's going to coach and how he's going to go about it, and he tries to learn from other people. So it would be fun to sit with them and just get to understand it. And that's because I have an interest in that as well.
I as I do too. And you heard in that conversation, like, what NHL coach is going to come to the podium and say, "Yeah, I'm working with a coach myself." Like I love that. That getting better, that self-improvement. But I think we would both agree that, sports, especially professional sports, has long been, well, if you get to the top, you have to be the top, right? Like, everybody comes to you for answers.
You know what I find amazing, Rob, is the guys that I played against that were coaching or even played for, guys I knew personally, and when they get in front of the media and they're at the rink and now they're coaches, all of a sudden it's, I've got the answers and you shouldn't ask questions almost. And you know what I mean? It becomes a very standard stock answer thing. And it's like, well, that's not who you were 5, 10, 15 years ago. You didn't pretend you knew everything. And yet I think you feel like you have to portray that. And I think it's sad. And I think some of the best and most honest answers, and I think most people could see through the BS anyway, is damned if I know. I probably, how refreshing would it be for a coach to go, I really screwed that one up. I should have had that guy on the power play. And I thought maybe this guy would turn out, but geez, that was a stupid decision. You'll never hear it.
No, it's, to your point, it's not an honest exchange of ideas anymore. It's become, in fairness, there's responsibility on this side too, because, are you going to say something? There's not a lot of context given. Again, I used a clip of you last week when Boomer was talking about Daryl, and you just said, okay, hold on. So is Daryl the reason for everything? Like, the soft ice cream machine didn't work. Was that Daryl? Like, I thought that's an extreme, but you know what I'm saying. I thought that was an interesting point by you, that it's easy to make a scapegoat. It's easy to point to one thing and say, that's the thing. And I do feel like it's robbing us of honest interactions.
Well, and it's odd because even like I said, I was on the YouTube there talking, and people are still talking about it because the Flames fans are interested in the Daryl and the dynamics. And I don't know if Seravalli and Drager came out with stuff about the guys not even wanting to play today or blah blah blah. So a lot of the listeners were talking about it on there, and I was also, texting into that chat saying the exact same thing, where it's like, I don't think Daryl was bang on this year. I don't think it was his best year of coaching, but I also know Daryl wants to win as much as anyone I've ever met. So when you're not having success and he's continuing to do things that I questioned and lots of people questioned, it's not because he's an idiot.
Nope.
He sees it as well. The results aren't there, yet I'm going to stick with it. That's not who he is. It's not and yes, he's stubborn and you can have that trend in them, but he's a results oriented person. He wants wins and success and he wants it done a certain way. And if it's not done, my point being, there's more to this story than just a simple, Daryl's lost it and he's too dumb to coach now.
Yeah, and I would never say Daryl's too dumb to coach. I wouldn't say that at all. He might be too stubborn to work with the modern player. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. That is definitely a possibility, and it's a philosophy that he has. Yet, Walker Duehr came in and had success. And Mangiapane, who to me was still a young guy last year, had good success.
Yep.
So I agree with you. I don't think he opens the pearly gates to allow the young kids to walk through and just hand them, ice time. That is an earned philosophy for Daryl. But I also don't think he shuts
the same.
I don't,
right?
No, I don't think he shuts the door foolishly on someone that might contribute to victories for his team.
So, okay. And this is great then. Let's talk about, and I say this ad nauseum all the time. The one frustration I had this year was Matthew Phillips. When you look at all the numbers, right? 24 overtime shootout games, 32 one-goal losses. He was given 2 games, never to be heard from again. My understanding of Daryl, and you played for him, you worked for him too, so you have a couple of different insights on Daryl. But my understanding of Daryl is Daryl was never one to believe that a player is developed at the NHL level. The player gets developed at the American Hockey League level, and then he comes to the NHL. And I was just a little frustrated that I thought Matt Phillips, and it's easy. Hindsight, I get that. But I thought he should have spent more time and tried to develop that player.
I would say that's his one greatest weakness.
Okay.
And I would say that I agree with you. And that's the thing. Like I think when I respond with some of these points and texts or conversation, people are thinking that I'm trying to stand up for Daryl. I don't need to stand up for Daryl. Daryl can stand on his own 2 feet. He's got more victories and success than I can dream of. So he don't need me to answer for him.
No.
All I say is it ain't just the coach. There was a bunch of players on that ice that weren't getting things done. Now, I think Daryl's missing, and I go back to 3 or 4. We go to the finals. There's a lockout, and the next year, Daryl believes, or at the time held the belief, that we didn't win the Stanley Cup because we were too young.
Yeah,
and he went and got older. He brought in guys, veteran guys, older guys, finish wrapping up career kind of guys. And again, not a knock against any of them. We got great teammates and great people. But I think in today's world, the answer to your problems as a franchise in general is having young kids coming up playing important roles and giving them the opportunity to do that. And I think today, Yes. Right? And I think today's kids are groomed to do it at a younger age. I don't think they need years in the minors anymore. Is it the end of the world if they go down there and play? Absolutely not. But I think kids spend I think almost too much time preparing professionally. Going to the NHL for a kid nowadays is great. It's the NHL and there's nothing better. But they aren't wowed by private jets hardly. They aren't wowed that they're getting fed meals. They aren't wowed by the dressing rooms. They aren't wowed by the buildings. Go play in North Dakota in college and tell me that there's a nicer arena than that. These kids nowadays are groomed from the age of 15 on to be able to none of this is a big deal for them. And again, it's a big deal for them because it's the NHL. I'm not taking away. I'm just saying that it's when it came from Saskatoon, we had to push the effing bus in a snowstorm to get it to the rink. That shit ain't happening now.
And then where did you play the next year? And then where did you play the next year? Right? Palm trees.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's a great story. I think I was on the bus one day with Dion, and he points, he goes, that's a palm tree. He'd never seen a palm tree before. He was in awe of a palm tree. Right?
100%. I remember landing in Florida. But today's kids don't. Again, it's not a negative. If they do go play in the minors for a year or two, improve and earn, I'm good with that. But don't hold them back just on a philosophy that they need that.
And this has nothing to do with the Flames, but I'm curious, is that a good thing or a bad thing that they're this prepared now? Or is there something
I think
if you had your
both.
journey to do over again, would you want to be more prepared or would you still want to be wowed by it all?
But my thing, I wasn't as prepared. I didn't know what I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a trainer. I didn't have a trainer for my whole hockey career. It was my second, third year pro. I went to training camp, hadn't skated, had not skated all summer. Now, it's me and being a stubborn idiot, but that ain't happening to a kid nowadays.
Oh God, no. No.
They're on moving. The ice. They're always ready, and their training's better. And I can remember the trainers in the NHL. It was archaic. Here's ice and a TENS machine. At most, that was your treatment, and that was your go ride the bike for 20 minutes. Okay. I can remember going to a thing, and the Leafs trainer, I forget who it was. If you ride the bike for a half hour and your heart rate is above 160, you're in good shape. Totally irrelevant to the game of hockey. Totally irrelevant. Point being, these kids are ready to play. Open up. Let them run. Let them run.
Yeah.
And if they don't turn out, you're not going to be worse off. And I said this about the Flames team this year. I don't know Trevor Lewis from a hole in the wall. I'm sure he's a wonderful human. But when you have down the middle, Lindholm, Kadri, and Backlund, you do not need a veteran fourth line center to play a defensive role. No. You don't need it. You have three guys that are supposed to be tops in the game at that role. Why do you have a fourth one? Let a kid play. Give him some freedom and let him see what we got. Good grief, we might have a 50-goal scorer. Anyway, that's
no, and I'm thank you for answering the question because that was always and I agree with you. Like Daryl's part of it, but management was part of it. Ownership's part of it. The building, I stand by my point that the building's part of it, right? Yeah. That that there's no joy in Mudville coming to that facility, right? If you
really
what
isn't.
they're proposing, right?
And it's actually surprising. I've talked to people about it because the rink here is no hell in Buffalo. It's newer, but it's like 6 or 7 years newer than the Saddle Dome.
Yeah.
But the way it's shaped and made, and maybe the way the team plays, it was a young team here in Buffalo. you get I don't know how to describe it, but you get the sound of the rush moving up the ice, right?
Mm-hmm.
The players pick it up at our blue line and they're attacking in the offensive zone, and the whole crowd is, whoa, you get that enthusiasm of they're on the attack and there's some noise being made. I don't know if it's saddled up and the way the sound carries in there, but you don't get that sense, and that it can be very loud, absolutely, but you just don't have that same atmosphere.
I agree. And a lot of the American buildings have that, right? And the newer
Yes.
buildings have.
And I say that as well. I say that as well. American people, they go to the game as fans. Canadian people go to a hockey game, they're observers.
Yep.
We're observers of the game. I've paid to be here. I don't have to cheer if I don't want to. I'm here judging you on how you perform. I'm not here cheering you on.
You know when I learned that? We were in Washington, and somebody took a shot and missed the net and hit the glass, and everybody went ballistic. It was loud. Like, it's loud. Or somebody makes a big hit. It's loud. It's loud, right? And whereas we're going, hold on, why are they pressing with the F2 here? No, don't do that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Very judgy. We're very judgy.
We are, not on this show, but overall, very judgy. So I'm just glad you're not mad at me. I was a little concerned that I somehow pissed you off and you left.
No, it was Fat Fingers, and Boomer and Pinder have always given me hell for having my mute on, but it's anyway. So, right. But I do have to run now. I love you, Rob.
I know. And okay, thank you, buddy. This was awesome.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
You bet. There you go. Retro. Hey, Jack. Like, woo. Rob, can you cover for us? We're going away. We just need you to come in. Yeah, sure. Tommy Wheeldon Jr., great. Okay, Retro's going to be on. Oh, wow, it's Retro. And then, bang, he's gone. It's like, what did I do? I've been here for 10 minutes, and I've sunk this franchise. Unbelievable. We are live in the Tower Chrysler studio. Do want to recognize a lot of the great partners here that help Barn Burner. Let's find one and talk about them, shall we? How about McLeod Law? Call Peter Klein at 403-254-3864 or visit McLeodLaw.com. That's McLeod with a hyphen law.com. Follow us on social media at McLeod Law LLP. Personal injury, they are approachable. They are caring. This is not something that should be more tension for you. This is not something that should make life even more miserable for you if you have an injury. They take the stress off your shoulders. You're not alone. Let them handle your legal, insurance, medical claims so you can focus on recovery. Our personal injury lawyers bring extensive experience and an understanding to your specific need. So that's McLeod Law. How about this? Why don't we take a look back at last night and then take a look ahead tonight in the National Hockey League? Just two games on tap. Let's start with Florida and Boston. The Bruins at home, an opportunity to close out this series leading 3-1. Unfortunately for the Bruins, and fortunately if you're a Matthew Tkachuk and a Florida Panthers fan, Sam Bennett I'll throw in there with local ties too. The Panthers, who have had, I don't know, they just have had a reason this year to be successful against the Bruins. Lopsided in shots, Sergei Bobrovsky in net for this one. So, they make, the young guy was the story, right? But they go back to the veteran, the guy they're paying the money to. He was terrific, especially early on. I thought made a couple of key saves. But, they got it from all and up and down the lineup, right? Bear Haraway with the 3 assists. Duclair comes in, gets a goal to get him on the board. But how about Matthew Tkachuk, including the game winner? 2 points. And I don't mean this the way it's going to sound, because I think he will evolve into this. Last year, when the team lost out to Edmonton in the second round, I'm not sure there was a whole bunch of players that you pointed to and said they were good or they gave all they could. And it was a little – I just thought that there wasn't enough bite. There was a lot of reasons. Markstrom wasn't good, but there wasn't a lot of bite. But Matthew Tkachuk, you knew could bring it and has brought it. He's, in a world without McDavid, he'd be probably nipping at the heels of Draisaitl as an MVP candidate. He had an outstanding season, only the fourth player in NHL history to score 100 points on two different teams or after getting traded. By the way, one of those players, Mike Rogers. So I thought that was pretty cool. Gretzky and Jimmy Carson, I think, are the other two. That's off the top of my head. But now we're going back to Florida. And now the pressure's on the Bruins, who don't lose a lot, but have now, I think they lost twice in the regular season, both in overtime and shootouts, I think, to the Panthers, but twice in this series. Florida's got a puncher's chance. I still think Boston pulls it out. I think if you look at this series overall, as we are right now, 7 points from Tkachuk, 8 points from, how about Taylor Hall? Here we are waxing poetic about Matthew Tkachuk, but you remember Tyler? You remember Taylor Hall? How about his series? Missed the end of the year, comes back. He's got 5 goals. He's got 8 points in this series. He's been good. Brad Marchand's been good. Tyler Bertuzzi's in there. Orlov. Just want to, and again, it's a series. It's not a playoff run. But when you make deals at the trade deadline, to Rhett's point about us being observers, we tend to be more observers than fans, right? Oh, we're making too big a deal out of the trade deadline. Oh, this all-day coverage. Nothing's happening. They're spending 4 hours at TSN and Sportsnet with their fingers up their noses and they've got a llama. Why are they doing this? Tyler Bertuzzi, Dmitry Orlov come over at the deadline to the best team in hockey, and they're contributing to the best team in hockey. Linus Ullmark continues to be good. Maybe not regular season good, but, he's been good enough in this series. Let's move on. The other series last night, I want to come back to Matt Tkachuk. Can we just throw up Matt Tkachuk for a second before I go there? Yeah, I just want to do this. So here's Matthew Tkachuk's career now in the postseason. 32 games, 22 points. So a lot of that now is, 7 of that, in what, 5 games. So if you go back, his board in Calgary would have been 27 games and 15 points in the playoffs. Guys get better. Something about what Rhett was saying is, as you get a little bit older, put in those situations are going to get better. I think Johnny Gaudreau is going to be better. He was better last playoffs than any playoff he had been in for the Flames. I always go back because we, around here we've got, Red Mile fever. I go back to 2004 and the second round of the playoffs in which Rhett Warrener's team knocked off the Detroit Red Wings. That Red Wings team had a couple of young players in Zetterberg and Datsuk. Didn't play a lot. And you looked at him, you go, geez, what are they ever going to contribute? And say what you will about the Sedins. In that same time frame, 2004, they were a second line in Vancouver. And I remember having conversations. Is that all they're ever going to be? So anyway, I tip my hat to Matthew Tkachuk. I think, part of when you talk about the issues in Calgary and what Rhett said, it goes beyond the coach. I think it goes on. It really is this stuck in the middle again, Steelers wheel. The Flames are the penultimate middle of the pack team. Never drafted higher than 4th in Calgary. I just heard Ryan Pike's voice in my head. In Calgary, have never drafted higher than 4th. They've done that twice. Never had a first-round pick in Calgary. Had a second round, I believe, in Atlanta. Always like this year. Didn't make the playoffs, but took themselves out of the really, really good player slot. What are they really good at? Foundation? Absolutely. Alumni? Better than anything. But the building's old, which doesn't mean they have the toys that other teams have. They work like the beavers down there to make the ice good. They work like beavers to make the game ops good, but they don't have the luxuries that other teams have. And they don't take a lot of risks. They're not a risky team. They don't take a lot of risks in the public. They don't take a lot of stands and that sort of thing. And I think that's reflected. And Matthew Tkachuk, you've got to find a way to be able to keep the next Matthew Tkachuk in Calgary. Yes, he's an American player. I get that. But a facility would have played a role in that. His role would have played a role in that. I mean, there's lots of things. I'm not saying you could have kept him, but you need to be have a fighting chance. Same thing with Adam Fox. I put this out on Twitter a couple days ago because we talked about it on our show. What is the legacy of Brad Treliving if Adam Fox is a Flame and, you know, he's the cornerstone of this franchise? So God bless people on Twitter who immediately lost the kind of context of the question and immediately told me that, well, he knew he was never, I know that part. That's not what I'm talking about. But what if you were a destination? What if they took Adam Fox in the 3rd round? Okay. They took him in the 3rd round. You know who else got taken in the 3rd round? Shea Weber got taken in the 3rd round. So teams, everybody had a crack at him before the Flames. The Flames had a crack at him before they took him, but they took him, you know, and yeah, American player, sure, wasn't coming here. Got it. Know that. I understand that. I was there. Having said that, you know, this organization's got to get to a place where you can at least have a fighting chance of keeping these players. That, you know, if the only way that you're ever going to have a superstar player that stays from start to finish in your organization is if he's from Forest Lawn and you draft him, or he grew up in Springbank and you drafted him and he's predispositioned to like it here, that's a failure. You've got to be able to go beyond that. Not sure how we ended up there, but that's what I think. Let's go to the other game last night, Seattle and Colorado. Take a look at the recap from Game 5. No Cale Makar. Speaking of the pride of Calgary, Cale Makar, last year's Norris Trophy winner, Conn Smythe Trophy winner, Stanley Cup winner, he's suspended, was not in the lineup. The Kraken go out on the road, not just happy that they're there for the first time, out on the road, outshoot Colorado at home. You look at the you look at the board here. Nathan MacKinnon doing his part, ranting in a point. But look on the other side. Who are these guys? Well, we know most of them. Morgan Geekie, Jan Gordy. Of course, he's got that Tampa Bay pedigree. Ty Carty, his first ever NHL game, he kicks in a goal. There's Jordan Eberle, who I know somebody's going to be listening on the Oiler Nation and go, "Ooh, they took a run at." No, I'm not. He's a Calgary kid. Love Jordan Eberle, but Jordan Eberle is now a really good second line player. But here he's getting it done, and this is the old. And we've seen this before with teams, right? The "you don't believe in us" stuff. We're underdogs. Nobody loves us. We're the new team, and we're playing the Stanley Cup champions, and blah blah. They're now in charge of this series, up 3-2. It's going back. A couple of times in this series, I thought they were done, and a couple of times in this series, I thought Colorado put their foot on their neck, and that was it. They haven't. Nikushin is out. I'm saying that wrong. My apologies. It's been a while. There's some controversy swirling around that. No Landeskog. We know about the injuries. We know about the suspension. No Kadri, like Grubauer. There's Grubauer. You know, Gorgiev, who they got from the. I think he's going to be a really good goaltender, but you know, he's not right now. He's an average goaltender, and he's giving them average goaltending. And here we have a team that is heading back, facing elimination on the road. Don't think that Nathan MacKinnon's eyes are going to get wide, bug-eyed. I don't think he's too terribly concerned about this. Having said that, they've got to prove it. They've got to get it done. So as you take a look at this now, can we get the recap up for the series? If you take a look at the series going back to Seattle, or do we have the overview? Maybe this is the recap. I meant the overview. My apologies. Anyway, regardless, good situation for Colorado, or good situation for Seattle. Not a great situation for Colorado. Wonder if we see a Game 7 in there. I think we're going to see a Game 7 in there. By the way, in 1993, the Hearing Loss Clinic was founded with a simple mission: make a positive difference in the lives of our clients. It's never been about hearing loss or hearing impairment. No. It's been about empowering you to be socially active, more connected with loved ones, and confident in every aspect of your life. Men, women of all ages, and of course, children can suffer from hearing loss. There can be serious health risks that are linked to untreated hearing loss. 4 Calgary locations: Shaughnessy, University District, Northwest in the Crowfoot Business Center, and North Hill professional offices. If you feel like you're having issues with your hearing, Visit one of their 4 Calgary locations for evaluation. A 2022 Chamber of Commerce Professional Service Excellent Award winner. Follow them on Twitter at the Hearing Loss. And this is a personal plea for me to other waterfowl hunters. If you've been hunting your whole life with a shotgun but not using hearing protection, please go in and get your ears checked, because you might be missing part of the spectrum of what you're supposed to hear. All right, we looked at last night. Let's look at tonight. Tampa Bay in Toronto, the Maple Leafs up 3-1. Now, Leafs won the last 2 games in overtime. The last game was their miraculous come from behind 4-1 third period victory, again in OT. They lost. They got their doors blown off in game 1. That's the only victory in this game series so far for Tampa Bay. Vasilevsky, who I think has been the best goaltender in the world for the last 4 or 5 years, has looked average in this series. 4 games, .856 save percentage. That's not what you're expecting. Now, on the other side, Samsonov, no screaming hell himself, .876 save percentage. But look at that. Mitch Marner, 10 points. Okay. Matthews, 7 points. Nylander, 7 points. Ryan O'Reilly, speaking of pickups, 7 points. But it's Marner, it's Matthews, it's Nylander. If, and I'm saying if, you bought into any of that soap opera that surrounds that team at the beginning of the year, every year, about Kyle Dubas going out and getting Matt Murray and Samsonov as his goaltenders. Did they do enough up top? Now, they were able to move things around and add Ryan O'Reilly, and he has been terrific for them. No doubt about it. But you look at Mark Giordano, and we know him so well here in Calgary. He's playing like he's 10 years younger. He's giving everything. He knows it. TJ Brody, I've always had a soft spot for TJ Brody. He's playing really well. This is demon exercising time. Or is it? Is this when the bottom falls out on Kyle Dubas and the Toronto Maple Leafs? Go back to 2012 in Boston, Game 7, up 4-1 on the Bruins, and they lost it. They lost it. Yeah, this isn't that. I think, honestly, Tampa's beat up. I think they're tired. You heard Retro talk about it. You heard about, how hard it is to win, how hard it is to play in these series. They've been there 3 years in a row. They won twice and went to the finals last year. They keep losing pieces. They keep adding where they can, but they keep losing. They do a great job there. I don't think they're disappearing. But unless Andre Vasilevsky starts giving them .950 save percentage like he has in the past, well, not .950, but you know what I mean. This series is going to end tonight. If Vasilevsky comes out, spins on his head, and spits wooden nickels, and Toronto can't get anything by him, and it goes back to Tampa, yeah, I can see some historical jitters in on the Maple Leafs. But I don't know. I just think coming home, Maple Leafs have had to deal with this. I don't think they're out of the woods. I think winning one series, and that's all everybody's been asking, just win one series. Okay, they win one series. They're going to have to duplicate that. But it just, things are going the Maple Leafs way in a way that things don't normally go the Maple Leafs way. The Rangers Devils, mea culpa. Mea culpa. All right, this is the dude who, after 2 games, declared the New Jersey Devils completely unfit for the NHL playoffs. Good and young, be better next year. Got to learn to lose. That's what you got to do, because that's what you do in the NHL playoffs. You learn to lose. Well, all they did is go into Madison Square Garden. Dougie Hamilton gets the overtime winner in Game 3, and then they get another win in Game 4. Series is tied at 2, but you look at this. All of this is on the back of Akira Schmid, who has come in. There's .966 save percentage for the kid. Look at that. Where did he come from? Who is he? We were not waiting for him. He wasn't the American Hockey League goalie of the year. No, that's Dustin Wolf. Well, let's go back. It's not an even path. Not a lot of kids jump from the USHL directly into pro hockey. It is a feeder league to college, but that's what he did. He came out of the USHL. He went into the American Hockey League, played in a couple of spots. Numbers were okay in Utica, 911 save percentage. This year, spent 18 games up. So he's not wide-eyed and rookie. He was but they had injuries. He was, if their goal, Vanchek and Blackwood, or is it Blackwood? Crap. I've forgotten my New Jersey Devils goalies, but let's go with the fact that he wasn't one of them. But he got some games because of the injuries. Look at his numbers in the American Hockey League. 23 games, 2.62. Good. 905 save percentage. All right. Okay. This kid is like he's on the, league minimum 2-year 2A. 22 years old. You love this story. You love this story. These kids that come out of nowhere. And he's done that. 2 games, 966, 5th round pick back in 2018. You got to love when this happens. Anyway, completely wrong. I have no problem admitting I'm completely wrong. There's other guys on this network that won't admit they're wrong. I was wrong. I thought this series would be over. I did not think they needed to keep the ice in Newark. But clearly, good for them for not listening to me. And elsewhere, Winnipeg in Vegas. Vegas starts with a V. Vancouver starts with a V. That's where it all broke down there, folks. Anyway, Vegas up 3-1 in that series. Winnipeg without Morrissey, Scheifele, just some terrible injuries. It goes back to game 3, trailing, rallying, but losing in overtime. The ifs, whats, buts, couldas, shouldas, wouldas, all of those sort of things. I don't see a path forward in Vegas tonight for Winnipeg outside of one, which is always there, and that's Connor Hellebuck. Because Connor Hellebuck's a hell of a goalie. He just is. He's really, really, really good. And I think he can steal you a game. And if this thing is going to go to a 6th game and come back to Winnipeg, it's going to have to go through Connor Hellebuck. That's the only way this happens. It's the only way it happens. And if it doesn't, then perhaps the Winnipeg Jets would like to join you golfing at St. Eugene Golf Resort and Casino. Championship golf course, casino, spa, and restaurants. Mountains surrounding you in all directions. It's time to discover or rediscover St. Eugene Golf Course or Golf Resort and Casino. Get your golf game and gear with their Spring Swing Golf Package. Starting at just $259, you and a friend can enjoy one night at the hotel, 1 round of golf, including Power Cart. Spring Swing is available right now up until May 17th. So we have until May 17th to take advantage of it. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Book your package today. Call them. Make your reservation. They look forward to seeing you on the course. That's steugene.ca and Twitter and Instagram at St. Eugene Resort. Holy cow. People love this show. They're putting their name all over it, as they should. As they should. By the way, a special edition of Barn Burner tomorrow. This one you're going to want to tune in for. Coming up at 10:45 a.m. if you're streaming it live, or the podcast immediately following. Special edition of Barn Burner tomorrow. By the way, we are live in the Tower Chrysler studio. Yeah, you can see it, right? Right there. Look at those trucks. Look at those Jeeps. You should see the ones that boys drive around. Whew! Fancy. All right, let's wrap it up with Friday's schedule, because that'll be the rest of the playoff matchups. Carolina taking on the New York Islanders, up 3-2. The Islanders staving off elimination with a road win. Carolina, to me, is just a superior team, but the Islanders are scrappy. They've gotten absolutely nothing from their big, transition, or from their big transaction, Bo Horvat. But Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, they've been chipping in. There's more there. I think there's a more with the Islanders, but I also think that Carolina's a very, very, very good team. And the only other series we haven't talked about that is tomorrow, and I'll get to the other two that we have. We're punting one too. We'll get to Edmonton and LA in a second. Dallas at Minnesota. Dallas tomorrow night will travel to Minnesota. I believe up in that series 3-2 is what we've got. 3-2. How about Rupe Hintz? That's a pretty impressive line, isn't it? Isn't it? 4 goals, 7 assists. Oh, look at that. Just happens to be leading the entire National Hockey League. So if you are in the barn burner kid sport hockey pool and you have Rupe Hintz on your team, you're probably laughing. Evan Bouchard would be the other one for me that's a little bit of an outlier. Taylor Hall, we talked about him before. But Rupe, how about that? Dallas, by the way, considerably better than last year when they lost to the Flames in 7 games. Jake Ottinger doing what Jake Ottinger does. It's Philip Gustafson's team in Minnesota. Minnesota, it was kind of what Rhett was talking about a half hour ago. That just used up so much emotional capital to get back in the race, used up so much emotional capital to get there. You wonder what they have left. No Kaprizov, which is, not going to help. And here they are, Ryan Hartman leading them in scoring with Matt Zuccarello. Tomorrow night, Boston and Florida. Mentioned before, Boston up 3-2. Seattle hosting Colorado up 3-2. And then on, I believe, Saturday, it's Edmonton and the LA Kings with the Oilers up 3-2. That's the 8th and final series going back to Los Angeles. Evan Bouchard, Connor McDavid. I just still think you had the Oilers. You were up 3-0 in the first. You're running their show. They came back. You got ahead. But the Oilers, that to me, LA has not been able to hold the lead with these guys. They've been able to come back on the Oilers, which I think is it's there. You can come back on this team. But LA, with the offense that Edmonton can throw out there, just cannot hold everybody in check. Andrzej Kopitar, he's doing everything you could ask for in this series. I believe that you're going to see Stuart Skinner. I thought there was a little controversy about who's going to start for Edmonton. Well, Stuart Skinner got pulled, but Stuart Skinner's going back in. Thing about the Oilers right now, Red talked about it, way too much Oiler talk. The thing about the Oilers right now, I don't know if there's anybody in the West that's going to stop them. Dallas could be tough, sure, because they're going to have to find an answer for Rupe. But it does not look like the Avalanche or the Avalanche of old that, would be more than a match for the Oilers. There it is in the West. Vegas, Dallas, maybe. Seattle, no. I just think the Oilers roll. And I guess if we're going to do that, let's take a look out east before we go. And again, Jersey, that's the one. I don't know. Toronto, as long as they win tonight, they've got a couple cracks at it. As long as they win tonight, 3 cracks at it, actually, they'll be okay. All right, time now for Betway. We have a couple for you for tonight, for those who do partake. The first one of the pre-built bets on the Betway app. Mitch Marner, Nikita Kucherov, and Jack Hughes all get 1 point or more plus 100. Okay? And the second and last one for us, and the Leafs Lightning game, Mitch Marner to get 1 or more power play points. I wouldn't say easy money, but I'd take it. Plus 115. So there you go. Those are the bets of the day, courtesy of Betway. And you see at the top, those are boomers. So don't worry about it, folks. This was not me. I did not pick these. Anybody that knows my history knows that they should avoid anything. These are actually boomers. So these are boomers, Betway bets of the day. I mentioned it before. Coming up tomorrow, the boys are back. But before we go, back at 10:45. But before we go, I forgot. We got tickets to give away. Should we do that right now? Let's give away some tickets, shall we? The winner of the Cavalry tickets, we'll get a hold of you. We're going to DM you on social media. But you're going to the game. Congratulations, Chris Ainsworth. Chris Ainsworth, you have won a pair of tickets to the home opener. You will hear from us. We will DM you. We will get you those tickets. Congratulations. And again, this Sunday, 3 o'clock, should be just beautiful weather, by the way. I believe, 3 o'clock, 23 degrees is what it should be. Just a beautiful day for the beautiful game. Anybody else I got to mention, Jack? No? We're good? Okay. There's a lot to read around here. Thanks to Rhett Warrener. Thanks to Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Thanks to you. Thanks to Jack and Alex, our outstanding producers, for getting us on. I've been Rob Kerr, just hanging out, helping out. The boys are back tomorrow. I'm back tomorrow afternoon if you're so intrigued. Just a game at streaming live at 1 o'clock, podcast after 3. Wes Gilbertson and David Legg are our guests, as we will talk about the Flames off season and also talk about the building announcement, which somehow, miraculously, we went almost 2 hours and never brought up once. Have a great day. This has been Barn Burner. We'll see you soon, everybody.